managing clients and finding the perfect niche for your business with special guest Lindy Nowak on today's episode of the Serve No Master podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by Canva. When we finally decided to grow our social media presence, Canva was the only option. I tried dozens of alternatives, but I had to admit that nothing else comes close. We use Canva for social images, print-on-demand designs, and tons more at Serve No Master. Grab a free account today at servenomaster.com/Canva.
Are you tired of dealing with your boss? Do you feel underpaid and underappreciated? If you want to make it online, fire your boss and start living your retirement dreams now, then you've come to the right place. Welcome to Serve No Master podcast, where you'll learn how to open new revenue streams and make money while you sleep. Presented live from a tropical island in the South Pacific by best-selling author Jonathan Green. Now, here's your host.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to a very special episode of the Serve No Master podcast. I'm so excited to have another amazing lady entrepreneur today to share her experience of coming from the world of fashion and branding into web design and talk a lot about some subjects I find very interesting and certainly how I started, which is helping offline businesses come online. So I'm so excited to have you here today. Thank you so much for spending some time with us, Lindy.
Thank you so much. I'm very excited to be here.
So I'd love to just get a little feel for your story as far as going from corporate world to starting your own business, and kind of when was that moment where you go, I'm going to do this. I want to strike out on my own. I want to be the one in charge, the one in the middle of the arena, the all or nothing. What was that moment like where you decided I'm going to go for it?
It's a great question. So I would spend 15 years, in New York City as a creative director. And there was an opportunity that arose with myself and my boyfriend to move to Miami. And so we did. We picked up. At the time, I was at Women's Health magazine, and I had been there for about 3 years. And while I was there, I had this little, notion in the back of my head that was like, the time is now. I need something that is mine, that I can create. But I'm in New York City. What does that look like? Going from being in the corporate world for so long and then just stopping. So I was like kind of back and forth, but man, it was like in the back of my head. So we did it. We moved to Miami. I got here and I knew that trying to find a high-level creative director position in the city was going to be a little bit more difficult than, in New York, there are jobs aplenty as a creative director. And that's when it happened. I met some people around the city. As a lot of your listeners, I'm sure they know that Miami is quite the tech hub right now. And it was just right in front of me. And that's when I was like, that's it. I am going to start my own agency. And I always had a dream of creating a productized service, one that was very transactional, both for our customers and for me. And so I spent about 6 months devising a plan for up-in-a-day websites that allows us to build our websites in one day. And that's how Up-in-a-Day was born.
So your process is very template driven.
Yes. Well, the process is template driven, but all of our websites are custom designed. So we build in Squarespace, and although Squarespace does offer templated designs, we start with a blank canvas every time, because what I did was, when I was creating the business model and the product itself, is that I took these blank templates and focus on the industries that we work with. And then I created a framework for each of these templated, if you will, websites. So it's almost like they have built-in wireframes that are focused on marketing-driven websites and layout and design.
That's very interesting, because I've seen there's two ends of the spectrum. There's the one side of the web designer that starts with a completely blank page for every project, and it takes a really long time. At the other end of the spectrum is like every client basically gets the same website in a different color. So how do you kind of weigh that balance to give the customer a good experience while allowing your business to grow and be scalable and deliver products so quickly? Because that's really the struggle. Most web design projects take months or even years.
That's such a good question. So when I moved to Miami and I decided to go start my own company, I did research first and foremost. I took a step back and I asked myself, what do I love doing? What am I really good at? And what value from that can I provide to the market? And that's when I decided that, well, I love building websites. I come from a marketing background, and all of the websites that I've built in my past have all been very strong and marketing driven. And what platform is the easiest to build in? And most importantly, the easiest to manage after our websites are built out for our end user. And that answer was Squarespace. So during the process of creating this model, I created a process that allows us to onboard our clients in the easiest, fastest way and in an enjoyable way for them. So the whole purpose of Up in a Day is to make it really easy and enjoyable for our customers to get a really great website that they deserve. Because I saw a gap in the market. People were coming to me saying, I need a website. I had a bad experience. I paid too much. I waited too long. My cousin designed our website and I need something better and I need it quickly. And I just, I was listening to these people coming to me. I knew there was a gap in the market for small business owners and entrepreneurs to get these great websites and get them quickly. So that's the process that I created to bring them on board very quickly, that process. Then a process that allows my designers to design these custom websites within 12 hours. We literally design them in a day through the framework that I created. And then the review with our client, which is so fun. And that's a video review. We make all the edits. And then the process to transition the website, the ownership of it, over to them, and then to send them off with a video that shows them how to make updates on their own. Now, we have a subscription service in which we make ongoing updates for them, part of the business model. So we have the recurring income for Up in a Day. But truly, the websites, as custom as they get, the framework is what is the basis of being able to devise a system and a layout for any industry. And then what we do is we take all of the branding and the assets and the copy and we plug them into the frameworks. And so no website is alike. They all have their own appeal because obviously everyone's market is a little bit different who they're targeting and their messaging is different. So therefore the websites have to be very branded and particular to each one of our customers. It's just the back-end framework that allows us to almost like plug and play, if you will.
What was your process for identifying your ideal customer? Like, how did you isolate this is the type of customer you want to work with? I know for myself, when I started out, I was selling local SEO services, local video marketing services, and I always looked for a customer who, for them, a customer had a specific value. So I wanted a customer who's like a single customer has the most value for them. So if I could get them 1 or 2 extra customers a month, they would get a real value. What's your process, or how did you figure out this is who needs me the most? This is who I can kind of deliver the product at the price band that I want to operate in?
Tested. I tested different types of customers, different types of industries coming to us, and then being able to vet them and learning, the hard way for people who need a little bit more than what our scope provides. And then those who are just very like, thank you. I am so glad I found you. Here's my branding. I will see you in 2 days. And those are the ideal customers. So once I found that the type of business owner is for Up in a Day is one in which just lets us handle the whole thing while they go back to focusing on their business, then I said, okay, who are these people? Who are these business owners? And so I started mapping out different industries that of businesses whose websites are a confirmation. So their customers they're coming in as a referral. They've heard about this business. They're shopping online. So they're going to go to your website for confirmation. So then I said, who are these people? CPAs, chiropractors, business coaches. They are small Main Street shops. So we have e-commerce as well. And then it was just, and then it would, I created the product. Then I created the process to help these business owners. And then I just vetted each client. So now we have, a specific type of mortgage broker CPA that these people are just so busy that they just need a really great website up. And so then it becomes more of like a referral business for us because they tell, everybody in their network about Up in a Day.
So one of the mistakes I made early on in my career was taking on bad customers, where sometimes I'm like, oh, we just need one more customer right here. And I would regret it. Sometimes I had customers that by the time I finished the project, I had lost money. What are the red flags for you, the signs that you go, oh, I do not want to close this client. I need to get out of this meeting. What are the signs that you go, this is not the right customer for us?
First, that was the number one that's the number one thing for Up in a Day is to vet the clients. So I created a list of questions that are very specific to ask. Like literally we ask the exact same questions to each of these new customers coming in. And if there are any red flags, for example, they want to have more than one round of reviews for their website, or if they want to be very involved in the nitpicky of the design and the layout, and they want to see a framework before we build it, like those are huge red flags because that is not the Up in a Day product. And that's fine. It's not for everybody. So it's really just like specific questions that will kind of spark the red flag or give us the green light to go. And we meet everybody on Zoom. So it's great because then we can see them face to face. They get to know us. We get to know them. We get to know everything about their business in 30 to 45 minutes, sometimes longer. And then it's really important. Actually, this is the most important part, that we are very communicative about what they're getting, about our process, about what the Up in a Day scope is. And we make sure that we clarify that during that first initial call. And then we ask them, are you okay with this? Does this sound like something that you want to go forward with? And then it doesn't, it's funny. You have your processes, you have your red flags, but sometimes you will get a client that will have a scope creep, even though they signed the agreement and we clarified exactly what they're getting. And that is fine too. If it moves into like custom land, it's not ideal for Up in a Day, but we will go there and we just, we charge on top of that. And again, it's all about communicating with your clients and making sure you explain exactly what they're getting up front, how much it's going to cost if they want more, and then moving forward from there.
You brought up a really good term there that every new entrepreneur hits when they're doing services, which is scope creep. And one issue that I see in every single type of service-based industry, whether it's delivering SEO services or web design, or for me, ghostwriting, it's that in the middle, they'll approve something and then later on go, they didn't really look at it and they want to do a big change. For example, for me, I'll go through a process where I give them an outline, then I write the rough draft. They read the rough draft. They go, reading this, I have a new idea. And I go, well, that sounds like a new book. And that's a really hard pain point for a lot of people because you deliver it and they go, well, I approved it, but not really. So how do you deal with this? What's the right way to approach that moment? Because that's such a hurdle in almost every form of service delivery.
It is such a hurdle. In fact, we have a client right now who, and we don't typically do this, asked us to create custom graphics for their website. And that exact thing happened late last week. So how did we handle it? in writing and on a Zoom. So it didn't come off as like too, affirmative. You have to stand your ground, and know the value and the quality of your work and what it costs. It's a time cost. We try not to go hourly because we work fast. So if we do hourly for 3 hours of work that would normally take somebody 6 hours, that's not gonna go well for us, for our margins. So we price everything out by project. And then, when this happened, we wrote a nice email. Okay, no problem. We are more than happy to help you. This is going to be a complete redesign based off of the agreement and the scope and how many rounds you get. This is the cost. Are you okay with it? If so, we will move forward. And then, if we have the availability or the opportunity to meet with them over Zoom to talk about something else on the project, it just gives you another wheelhouse, like another channel to demonstrate your customer service and the quality. Even it doesn't matter. Of course, you're annoyed and you're like, oh my gosh, this client's like so much work and I don't want to be doing this anymore. But if you just get with them and talk to them in person, it just alleviates so much pressure off of you. Again, because you're communicating with them, you're getting a confirmation that it's okay to move forward. And then at the end of the day, it all gets done and you are getting paid for the work that you are doing without scope creep. It's just I think as a business owner, as creatives, we tend to be a little sensitive. So when these things happen, these clients come in, we have to assume that 90% of the people coming to us as creatives are not creative. So they don't understand what happens behind closed doors on our side, right? They shouldn't have to. It's not their, they don't think that way. But we spend every waking hour thinking about these projects. And then then we have to implement them and execute. And then when we present to the client, even though they approved it and they come back and say, you know what, I actually want something else, you almost can't fault them for it because every business is evolving. And sometimes those clients don't know how to articulate really what they want, or you don't know what's happening behind those closed doors. Maybe they have, other team members, or maybe it's subjective perceptions, and so it's really about standing your ground, knowing what you're worth, knowing what it's going to cost. And if they don't want the redesign, or if they decide not to go with you to redesign or rewrite or whatever it is, you can send them somewhere else, maybe refer them to somebody else. And we actually say that sometimes, like if it gets not so much up in a day. I actually had a little boutique digital marketing business before I started Up in a Day. And we would do that. We would say, perhaps what you're looking for is not what we can provide, and that's okay. We have somebody that we can refer you to.
So
that's always hard to do.
That's really, really helpful advice. One of the challenges, especially in creative, I always worry about anything creative because that's where this personal opinion comes in, and someone can say, I like it or don't like it, or they like it. Then they show it to their wife. Their wife goes, that looks horrible. And you have a problem the next day. That's happened to me many times. One of the first lessons I learned from one of my mentors about 12 or 13 years ago, he said, most people in America have really bad taste. And two of my sisters are New York fashion designers, and New York fashion doesn't work in most other places. Most people, they don't dress high fashion. I still don't understand why a man would wear cowboy boots, jean shorts, and like a tuxedo jacket. I don't understand high fashion. I'm aware of it, but that's what I've noticed is what happens when you have somebody who comes to you and they tell you what they want for their website, and your first thought is, oh no. People, when you mix those two colors, it immediately causes people to throw up or they're going to get dizzy. How do you deal with that issue when someone comes to you as a creative and you know their idea is a really bad one and they're pushing for it hard?
Do they come to you with existing branding that you're looking to clean up, or just like something brand new?
I'll give you an example for me. So I do a lot of high-level ghostwriting, and sometimes a client will come to me and they'll start making rules. Like they won't show up to the live interviews, they won't do the phone calls, or they won't let me they won't let me use certain types of stories, or they go, I don't want you to write anything that didn't actually happen. So I have no creative freedom, or they'll say, oh, you're not allowed to do any research outside of the phone calls. This happened to me where a client only tells me really boring stories and I'm not allowed to jazz them up at all. And I go, well, you've tied my hands. I'm not allowed to do research. I'm not allowed to bring in like facts to back up a story. And I'm not allowed to tell any story that you didn't tell me. And I'm also not allowed to increase the interestness of your stories, which is basically they removed all my skills from the table. And I go, okay, but the book's going to be really boring because you've told me I'm not allowed to make it interesting, right? You've taken away what I do that I'm really good at. And in the same place, I've had it where I did a web design project when I was starting out, and the person's idea was a combination of sugar daddy dating and Facebook, where rich guys could show off the young girls they were dating. And he's had a picture of a man holding money doing shh. And he goes, the picture needs to be every week. He said, the picture needs to be bigger. That was always, it was always like, no. And I was like, this picture is so tacky, but he's like, it needs to be bigger every week. He's like, I just want it bigger. And that was the main thing he said. And I was like, I don't know where this idea came from, but it was one of those clients you just take because you need the work, even though in your head you go, this is a terrible idea. And he also, it was like, I was like, oh, the worst thing of two different ideas combined. And he's like, we need like really bright purples. And he goes, and can you make the guy bigger again? Like, I really want the guy bigger. So that's kind of what I'm talking about. Those are two examples from my experience.
Wow, that is the best example I've ever heard. Okay, well, let's see. Let's digest that one. First, I would say the way we would handle it is if it's a bad idea and you just like can't break through the chains, then we have done a couple things. Just like you were saying, you explained to them, kind of say without saying we're the professionals, but you came to us to clean this up. We're happy to work within your parameters, no problem. But I just want to let you know that this is where we're strapped on our side. So when we execute and the outcome, hopefully we can, it'll be exactly what you're looking for. But if it's not, this is why, because we're only working within these parameters. The other thing we do, I'm not sure if your listeners also have tried doing this, but it tends to work depending on what you're doing for a client. But we show them A and B. A is what they want. The lots of purple in the picture, bigger, 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 and then we show them B. Sometimes C. And B and C is a mix of what we would do and what they want. And C is what we suggest. And we literally write that on a little presentation. It takes a lot. It takes time, yes, and it takes effort, which means it takes money on your end. But I think at the end of the project, you're going to be glad you did that. And it's a lesson that you learn, and you'll start to repeat that over and over again. The other thing is you could just do it and not show it in your portfolio and pay and charge for it and charge good.
So I appreciate your honesty, because I have something when I take on a client, I have several charges built in, which is, I call it an inconvenience tax, which for example is very often I'll write an entire book for someone. I'll write the entire rough draft and they never read it and I never hear from them again. That's built in. Or they finish it, they love it, but they never publish it. And people say to me, Jonathan, why don't you get upset? I go, that's built into my pricing. I learned the first time that happened. Because I wrote something for someone. I was like, this is the best thing I've ever written. And then they didn't publish it. And I was like, oh boy, okay. I learned my lesson that if it's something, the more proud I am of it, the more I build that in, or the inconvenience, like that's become a large problem. Like my price for if someone's a great client would be much lower. But I build in what if they are going to be annoying? What if they're going to ask? What if they're going to make me write stuff that's really bad, or they're going to make me include a story that really bothers me? I build that into the pricing. And so that's kind of become part of my process. Exactly that. You add in that buffer for the bad idea, or I'm not going to include in my portfolio, or say things like, do not tell me when I wrote this. I've been a part of projects like that before, where I'm like, definitely focus on the ghost and ghostwriter. So that's a really good lesson. Yeah, but sometimes you just want to finish the project. I'd love to dive into a little bit of your experience with branding, colors, and fashion design. What are the most common kind of mistakes you've seen small business owners make? The first one I encountered when I started out, my very first SEO client, she said, how come I never get any phone calls from my website? And she couldn't understand it. She spent a lot of money for web design. And I looked at her website and I said, well, probably because your phone number is not on the website. It was like and she was like, you're a genius. And I was like, I wish I was, but it was and these really small things happen that people don't realize are critical. The phone number's not there, or the email address doesn't work, or you don't get the emails to your house. What are some really common mistakes people make with their websites when they're starting out as small business owners?
They have too many call to actions, too many buttons, or they don't have any towards the top of the page. You want your audience to do one thing. What is it that you want them to do? Do you want them to sign up to your newsletter only? Then put it at the top of the page and tell them why. Solve their problem. What is the problem they're having? And then explain it in your words with great messaging, and then put the call to action. Do you want them to call you? Put your phone number there. And make it easy. Remember, we keep it simple, stupid. Like, make it easy for your customers, because people in the days of Instagram and Facebook and Twitter and people's heads going a million miles a minute and they're scrolling so fast, they're doing the same thing on your website, right? They'll stop and they'll read, but know that they're skimming. So you have 3 seconds to capture their attention at the top of the page, mobile and desktop. Do you want them to book a call with you? That's ours. So we book a call. If they want to call us now, that's also an option, but just keep the one CTA and the one piece of language, that message that answers what they want to hear, that solves their problem. That's easier said than done. And I'm sure you know, because you're a writer. And so maybe try some A/B testing when you get to that point of your messaging, but that should also be towards the top of your page with awesome graphics too, by the way, that represent either your customers or you.
That's a really, really good piece of advice. I love it, because that's a lot of what I agree with. When I take a writing project and say, if you can get someone to do one thing after you read your book, what is it? You can have them do one action. And I often, the place I see this the worst is at the end of every podcast, someone will go, hey, thanks for listening. Leave a review, follow us on Facebook, subscribe to our newsletter, listen to us on Stitcher, listen to us on Apple Premium. And they have like 15 calls to action. I always think, no one's going to do that. I can't even remember all of those things. And that's the place where I see people do it the worst. But that's really good advice, because if we don't have the one thing, then people don't know what to do. I'm always amazed. I always think of the Cheesecake Factory's menu. I don't know how they're in business, because I've never read the whole thing. It's so long. It has commercials in it. It has ads in the menu. And that's the one, like, people always go, but that's the one place they have the longest menu. I'm like, yeah, but they're the exception. So often people, when they're given like 3 choices, because we're all afraid of making the dumb decision. So if we have 3 choices, we go, I got to think about this because I don't want to choose wrong. Do I want to follow on Facebook? Do I want to subscribe to the podcast? Do I want to leave a review? Do I want to leave my email address? And so we're so afraid of the wrong decision, we make no decision. It's the same thing in like car dealers. Car dealers know if you go, oh, I'm going to think about it and come back, they know you're not coming back. As soon as you pull back from the decision making because they've shown you too many cars or too many decisions, you go, oh, I came here to look at 1 car. You showed me 2. Now I'm not sure. So that's a really great lesson, is that when it's a yes or no decision, a binary decision, it's like either book a call or don't, or either leave your email address or leave the website. Then people are forced into making a decision, and either decision is fine. At least they've made a decision. So I think that's really, really good piece of advice. I think it's so valuable for people, because it is a really common mistake I see where they have so many calls to actions or so many things they want a customer to do, and it's hard to narrow that down. What about, do you think it's better to have a really strong brand that not everyone likes, or that stands out, or that maybe it's a little bit tacky, or one that's kind of forgettable? And I'm kind of thinking here about I call it the Canva effect. There's a lot of websites that look like Canva, and they look the same. They use the same fonts. They're obviously using Canva templates, which are nice, but they're kind of ubiquitous. And so all these websites look the same. They use the same set of pastel colors. Or is it better to have something that's a little more distinctive, but not everyone's feeling it, but it's memorable?
The latter. I think that you're right. There are a lot of templated websites out there that all look the same. And when you start shopping around and you see many of those, you start to question their offering and their brand. And I'd be much more apt to, get on a website. Maybe the branding's not perfect and beautiful and on trend with the now, but at least it's unique, and I can get past that and think and see their offering and see the uniqueness. And I'd be, more interested in contacting them to learn more. That's my opinion. I think, yes, branding is important, and the layout is important, but visuals, of course, everything. I mean, if the visuals are bad and the website's really busy and you don't know where to look, then that's an issue. But if the website's clean and maybe not that great, but at least they're unique outside of everybody else, I think that's a little bit more important.
So one thing,
big business.
One spot where a lot of people get stuck is paralysis analysis. They keep chasing perfection. And I see this in a lot of areas of business. For example, a lot of authors follow me and I say, "Where's your audiobook?" And they go, "Well, I have to do it myself." And they haven't recorded it for 2 years. So they've lost 2 years of sales. That's how I see it. That's why I have someone else do an audiobook. I can't do my own audiobooks because I'll want to keep making it better and making changes. And you're not allowed to do that. You have to follow the book exactly. Otherwise, Amazon gets mad at you and won't do a sync. So in the same way, I see sometimes people like, "Oh, I've been working on my website for a long time. I'm not going to show it to anyone until it's perfect." And there's this chasing of perfection. Now, my website has a lot of glitches in it. I get emails all the time. "Jonathan, I found a broken link. Jonathan, I found another broken link." And it's been like that for the 6 years it's been up. And I say, yeah, it has broken links because things are always changing. I'm always fixing it. And I can never catch them all. My website's big. I've got lots of blog posts. It happens. And it doesn't affect my business. I see it as the 80-20 rule. Like, there's going to be broken stuff and only a few people notice it. And when they notice it, they tell me, I fix it. I have a whole system set up for people to let me know when they find mistakes so they can help me and then I'll fix them. But there's this fear, I can't publish it until everything's right. But then by the time they release it, some of the stuff has changed again. So how do you deal with that? I think that's what's interesting about what you do is the one-day website idea, because it doesn't give people time to do that.
Yes, exactly. For us, for 80-20 rule, go about your projects 80% of the time. And then most of the time, you're going to see that they are 100%. But if you go in with like, okay, 80% is good enough, at least give it that without the pressuring yourself to do like the nitty gritty, perfect. And then you start procrastinating. And then all of a sudden it's been too long and you have to go back and fix a bunch of stuff. So, with us, we don't have to take the 80% rule because we're so used to building these out every single day. And we can do it really fast. But, we know that when we present these websites to the clients, that there's a chance that they either hate them or they love them or they want to make a lot of edits or just a few edits. And so we just make sure that the website is exactly, to our standard. Then we present to the client. And then when we're making all of the edits at that time, usually there's just like a few like copy edits, we hand it off. Because again, going back to like subjective and perceptions, you don't know what the client sees that you see. And they're coming to you because you are the expert. So it's important that you give 100%, even if it is 80%. But it's knowing that when you are presenting your work to a client, that you are happy with it, and then go from there. It's like step-by-step approach, but making sure that you guys, you give as much as you can, the 100%, based on what you're given to work with. Or you could do 80%, which works too. The 80-20 rule is actually really important to follow with a lot of things, I believe.
I think that's really wonderful advice. And I appreciate you spending so much time with us today. I know your time is so precious. Where can people find out more about what you do and to see some of the amazing designs you've put together?
Thank you. Well, it's been so fun chatting with you, and thank you for having me on your show. Your listeners can go to upinaday.co, and if they want to see our work, they can go to upinaday.co/our-work, and you can find it in our nav bar as well. Thank you.
That's perfect. So guys, we put the links right below the video. If you're listening to the podcast, it's in the show notes and it's in the PDF that comes with the blog post. We put the link everywhere. Thank you so much for being here today, Lindy. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to today's episode. Making that first dollar online doesn't have to be daunting. I've got you covered. Get my free guide on how to make your first $1,000 online right now at servenomaster.com/1K.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of the Serve No Master podcast. Make sure you subscribe so you never miss another episode. We'll be back next week with more tips and tactics on how to escape the rat race. Please take a moment to leave a review at servenomaster.com/iTunes. It helps the show grow, and more listeners means more content for you. Thanks again, and we'll see you next week.